At 3:42 in the morning, a distant siren cuts through the silence of a sleeping town. In Texas, on June 20, 2001, Andrea Yates emerges from a state of mental blackout, overcome by postpartum psychosis that has wiped out every trace of empathy. One by one, she takes her 5 children, Paul, Luke, John, Mary, and Noah, and submerges them in the bathtub as if performing a sacred ritual. Her hands tremble. Andrea calls the police, not to confess, but to plead for help in a broken voice. Her words carry the echo of a protective delusion. Shortly after the authorities arrive, her husband is informed. A trail of floating toys is left behind, childhood ghosts suspended between life and death. Nothing seems to make sense. In the hallways of the house, there's a heavy emptiness, an absence that screams. The court acknowledges her evident madness and declares her not guilty by reason of insanity. Andrea Yates is sentenced to lifelong psychiatric hospitalization at the Kerrville facility. At the same time, the public record preserves the tremor of the act. A mother overwhelmed, unable to find peace, driven to the extreme in a moment of mental eruption. Words stop where pain explodes. The images of the house remain etched in memory. Scattered small objects, walls fading into darkness, a mirror reflecting a destroyed face. At dawn, Texas wakes up as if gasping for air. It's impossible to shake the lump in the throat. No justification can contain the inner violence, split by a salvationist ideology. Andrea's face shows no anger or resentment, only a spectral calm. There's no sign of a willful act of evil, only confusion, darkness internalized as choice, a gesture made to halt an illusion of damnation, a mother stripped of the humanity necessary to comprehend what she was experiencing. Every year, flowers appear on the children's graves, silent messages of a grief with no escape. No screams, only a brief truce between 2 silences, the one before and the one after the act. In a quiet Utah town called Pleasant Grove, on April 12, 2014, a 911 call marked the beginning of the discovery of one of the most horrifying and surreal domestic tragedies in recent American history. In a dusty garage, among stacked boxes and old junk, lay a secret no one had dared imagine. When Darren West, the ex-husband of Megan Huntsman, returned to the house after nearly a decade away due to legal troubles, he opened a box and made a discovery that would change his life and the entire community forever. Inside, wrapped in plastic bags and cloth, was the mummified body of a newborn. The scene was silent, still, unreal. The chill that followed was just the first step toward something even more horrific. When the police arrived and began inspecting the garage, they discovered 5 more infant bodies, each hidden using the same macabre method. In total, 6 lives never lived, snuffed out just after birth, kept for years behind a door no one had ever truly opened. The investigation quickly led to Megan Huntsman, a mother of 10 children who had lived in the house between 1996 and 2006. During that time, she had given birth to at least 7 babies. 1 was stillborn. The other 6 were murdered immediately after birth. No one knew she had been pregnant. No one had noticed the pregnancies. After each delivery, she later told police, she killed the babies by strangling or suffocating them with her hands, wrapped them in towels or sheets, sealed them in plastic bags, and placed them in cardboard boxes, the same boxes that sat undisturbed in the garage for years, appearing harmless. During her interrogation, Megan confessed everything with chilling calm. She said she had never felt capable of caring for those babies, that her addictions, methamphetamine and alcohol, had made her unable to face any more children. She said she felt overwhelmed, helpless, and trapped. But the clarity and precision of her actions told another story, one of preparation, of method, of silence repeated over time. Around her, a whole family continued to live. Children raised in ignorance, a frequently absent husband, and a community that never suspected a thing. In 2015, Megan Huntsman was sentenced to 6 consecutive life terms for first-degree murder, a punishment that will keep her behind bars for the rest of her life. In court, her surviving children and other family members tried to reconcile the woman they had loved with the truth of her crimes. But no explanation ever truly sufficed. Authorities also discovered that in 2005, during a drug raid, officers had entered the home, but no one inspected the garage. There had been rumors, whispers, anonymous tips, but no thorough investigation. On October 25, 1994, Susan Lee Smith of Union, South Carolina, killed her two sons, 3-year-old Michael Daniel Smith and 14-month-old Alexander Tyler Smith, by leaving them strapped in their car seats in her Mazda Protege, which she then deliberately rolled into John D. Long Lake. At first, Smith reported a fake kidnapping, claiming that an African-American man had hijacked the car with the children inside. Local authorities, the FBI, and national media launched a massive search. The case quickly gained national attention, with public involvement growing by the day. For 9 days, Susan Smith maintained her story, even appearing at press conferences, often crying and pleading with the kidnapper to return her children. But inconsistencies in her account led investigators to suspect otherwise. Under mounting pressure, Smith confessed. She said she had acted out of desperation, citing a personal motive, a romantic relationship with a man who didn't want children. This was confirmed by a letter he had written, clearly stating he saw no future with a woman who had kids. On November 3, 1994, authorities recovered the submerged car, with the children's bodies still inside. Autopsies confirmed drowning as the cause of death. At trial, the defense argued that Smith suffered from severe depression and borderline personality disorder. The jury, however, rejected the insanity plea. On July 22, 1995, Susan Smith was convicted on 2 counts of murder and sentenced to life in prison with the possibility of parole after 30 years. Her first parole hearing was scheduled for November 2024. In the U.S., between 1972 and 1985, Mary Beth Tinning of Schenectady, New York, lost 9 of her children under seemingly natural circumstances. The deaths were initially attributed to SIDS, sudden infant death syndrome, congenital complications, or other unexplained causes. Medical professionals and health authorities didn't immediately connect the dots, due in part to the lack of visible signs of violence and the trust placed in her as a grieving mother. However, the frequency and pattern of the deaths, along with the family's isolation, eventually raised red flags among some specialists. Mary Beth's first child, Jennifer, died in 1972 of meningitis. Over the next 14 years, 8 more children, some biological, others adopted, died, many shortly after birth or within their first years of life. No criminal charges were filed until the death of Tammy Lynn on December 11, 1985. An autopsy revealed signs consistent with suffocation. During questioning, Mary Beth admitted to killing at least 2 of her children. While it was never definitively proven that she was responsible for all 9 deaths, authorities considered the pattern too consistent to be accidental. In 1987, Mary Beth Tinning was convicted of second-degree murder and incarcerated at Bedford Hills Correctional Facility. She was released in 2018 for good behavior and due to her advanced age. The case shocked the public and led to a review of investigative procedures in repeated cases of infant death within families. Some experts linked her actions to Munchausen syndrome by proxy, though no official psychiatric diagnosis was made public. In 2003, in Arizona, the Diane Odell case shook the nation due to the severity of the crimes and the long silence that had concealed them. During the clearing of a rented storage unit in Kingman, inside sealed containers and in advanced stages of mummification, the remains of 3 infants were discovered. Forensic analysis dated the deaths between 1982 and 1985. Diane Odell, a former New York resident who later lived in California and Arizona, had led a seemingly ordinary life. No criminal record, no suspicions raised. The discovery happened by chance, when the storage unit was opened due to non-payment and an expired rental contract. Investigators identified the woman through documents among her belongings. Autopsies confirmed the infants had been killed shortly after birth. No visible external trauma was found, but the circumstances and concealment of the bodies ruled out natural causes. Odell was arrested and interrogated. She initially denied the accusations, but the evidence led to formal charges of second-degree murder. The trial revealed that she had given birth to the babies alone, outside of medical settings, and had then hidden them in sealed containers. No clear motive was provided, and no psychiatric evaluation was deemed sufficient to explain the acts. In 2006, Diane Odell was sentenced to life in prison. The case raised critical questions about failures in health and social monitoring systems, and highlighted the lack of oversight for births that occur outside of medical facilities. State health authorities were criticized for not detecting any anomalies during the years the deaths occurred. The public, stunned by the horror and invisibility of the crime, called for stronger prevention and monitoring tools to ensure such tragedies are never repeated.